God, as a collective of lords, said, I preserve the Ahin race to be without evil, as the foundation of my light, from whom I could reach forth to the tribes of darkness. For I, God, foreordained, set beforehand as strategy, predetermined, not to go within darkness to battle it, but to stand outside it, and give an example of righteousness, the Ahin, for man to look upon. And I, God, planned from the beginning that my chosen would labor through examples of cities and kingdoms of righteousness. The evil man and evil priest, who are subjects to Satan and his hosts, remain in evil, that is, with the world's people, preaching righteousness without a city or kingdom of example. But my chosen, the chosen of God, go away by themselves and build their cities, as a testimony of their faith in the Father, Jehovah. And they, the chosen, practice the fullness of my commandments, the commandments of God, in their lives toward one another. To him, of humanity, who says, This is mine, I, God, have not spoken. To him, of humanity, who says, My house, my lands, I, God, have not spoken. For inasmuch as these things, whether house, land, or anything at all, belong to them, of humanity, such men belong to such things, and not to me, God. To illustrate this truth, I, God, raised up separate from the world's people, the Ahins, who were my living examples of righteousness. Do not think, however, that the Ahins were the perfection of manhood and womanhood. They were not a developed race, nor righteous because of their own knowledge. By the constant presence of my exalted angels, the exalted angels of God, they, the Ahins, were obsessed to righteousness, being restrained away from evil. They were my sermon before the tribes of drunks and cannibals that covered the earth over, and, by virtue of signs and miracles, and by non-resistance, I, God, preserved them. For man of himself evolves only to power in evil, and for this reason, O man, you shall discern, recognize, make out clearly, behold, detect, my dominion, the dominion of God, over the races of men, to work righteousness and goodwill. And my examples reached into the souls of the barbarians, so that, in future ages, I, God, could prepare them to hear my voice, and to comprehend my commandments. For it is the fullness of light among men, when, without my presence, the presence of their God, or the presence of my hosts, they, of humanity, shall understand virtue and knowledge, practicing them of their own accord. In which time, men shall perceive that righteousness, peace, and love toward one another, are the foundation of the happiness of the Spirit, and the only light of its resurrection. The Lord, as a collective of lords, said, Do not think that I came to one nation alone, leaving the others in darkness. I did not come to one alone, but to all the divisions of the earth. I held my hand over them according to what was required for them according to the times, and they accomplished that which was designed from the beginning. The will of Jehovah is not for man to be forever led, because, lo, look, his Lord says, but for man to ultimately have the light of practicing good works organically, from infancy up. The Lord, as a collective of lords, said, A teacher who does all things for his pupil, also sacrifices his pupil. He who teaches his pupil wrongly, sins against the Father, Jehovah. He who teaches his pupil not at all, is accessory to evil. In this light the Lord, your God, stands over the children of men. Behold, I, the Lord, your God, have demonstrated that my chosen can maintain themselves unharmed among barbarians, also that by unrestrained marriages, a sacred people is quickly lost among barbarians. For man, witnessing terrible conflicts, would rather have sons of strong limbs and arms, and crafty minds, to do abundant murderous work, from which condition he has no incentive to rise in gentleness and love, for the glory of the Spirit. And yet, such preference among man for strong limbs and arms, and crafty minds, over gentleness and love, has still worked out for the eventual glory of spirit, so that I, your Lord, could show future generations, first, that without my hand in the work, no good nor peace could come among men, and, second, that only by a race of Ihins, as examples of my power, through signs and miracles, could the barbarians be reached for their own good. Not only did I, the Lord, your God, leave the ruins of my cities, which had no gates of entrance, and houses without doors of entrance, so that you would have testimony of the race of Ihins, but I have shown you that only by such a procedure could the barbarians be induced to a higher evolution. Do not think, O man, that I, the Lord, your God, did not foresee the time when men would question whether the Great Spirit, Jehovah, ever placed a Lord over the earth, and that man would say, Behold, there is no Lord and no God. For I foresaw these times, and provided angels to go in advance, to show, first, the evolution of the races of men from out of the lowest darkness, and, second, that the cause of the evolution came from the Great Spirit, and was directed to righteousness, but would not have been so, except for the Lord, your God. For I, the Lord, your God, left sufficient tribes to this day, who dwell in darkness, even cannibals, as a testimony, that of themselves they possess nothing to cause a desire for evolution into knowledge, peace, industry, love, and good works to one another. Will man not say, one people is raised up in consequence of the presence of their neighbor, and without a Lord or God, and the angels of heaven? Now, behold, I, the Lord, your God, have left savages at your door, and you do not raise them up, but destroy them, showing you that even your wisest and most learned have no power in resurrection. Neither have I left any way open for the resurrection of barbarians, except by examples of Theists, who shall practice righteousness and miracles. Yes, who shall practice miracles, which are proofs of the spirit world, and especially of the dominion of Jehovah and his heavens. But more generally, who shall practice miracles, which are the fortuitous circumstances or results, which often attend the course of good works. And there shall rise up those who will do these things, and because of their success, they shall also be testimony of the Ihin race, in whom I, the Lord, your God, laid the foundation for the redemption of the whole earth.